Alright, yo, what's going on, good people? It's your boy 3 Stacks in this thing, baby, representing Team Kings of Games. First and foremost, concerning the background noise, it's nighttime. I got my windows open, so that's why you can hear like the actual outside. You hear the crickets and stuff, so you're gonna hear that in the background noise. Sorry, you guys, it's just kind of hot. AC's messed up right now, so I got that background noise, and I got a little bit of a fan blowing, like a fan on low, blowing in my face. Kind of ghetto right now, but bro, you know it's life, man. AC's messed up. So if that, just to let you know, that's the background noise if you're curious, and I hope that it's not overbearing. I hope that I can project my voice over the background noise, so it kind of doesn't affect the quality of the video that much. But yeah, this is just a temporary thing until we get the AC back up and running. But this is a long overdue update for UA, you guys. And I know it's long overdue, but I am a man of my word, and if it's in my power to do so, I will. It might not always be on your time, but I always eventually get to it. So I'm sorry for those of you who had to wait. But UAs are finally here, and this is the variant that I am currently tweaking with the most. This is the one that I've tweaked the most and also had the most fun with, and the one that just it seems to have the highest ceiling. You guys saw the first take that I ever did on UAs, which was the one that I actually got first place at my locals with, which was a UA take. The take on UAs, I approached it with a Sky Striker engine. I had a couple other generically applicable going second cards like Pankratops and things of that nature. But this build is really different. It doesn't have to break boards entirely. It's very similar concept to my mindset approaching my going second Inferno deck, which is we don't have to break the board, but if we can go Wither and chip damage and drop a Mystic Mine or another impactful card that singularly can put your opponent in a disposition, or they have to trade multiple cards to interact with that one, that's the game plan. That's your go-to. So you can either break the board, you can go aggro, because UA's really, in this deck, is like a diamond in the rough too. UAs really are a diamond in the rough, because their potential is there, dude. It's untapped, it's raw. People don't even know how to play the deck yet. Like, it hasn't really been broken or experimented with enough for anyone to even know the exact capabilities that this deck has. But just in the standpoint of going second, UAs are already a very well and capable, able-bodied going second deck. And that's kind of the playstyle. You're just going to wither your opponent's resources, try to get chip damage in. You just want a little bit of damage, because once a Mystic Mine has been activated, if your opponent doesn't have an out to it, you kind of just win the duel because your life points are higher. And essentially, they don't have a main deck out, so you have to go to game 2. So you can wither your opponent's board down, get chip damage, or you can just go try to wither your opponents down systematically, meaning 1-for-1, like a Cerberus here, a Phoenix there, and then a Pop there, and a Pankratops there. You can 1-for-1 and just break it apart individually. It might be incremental, but it's a systematic thing, and you just kind of take out the biggest threats first. So that's how we're playing UAs. It's still a going second deck, you guys. Definitely get some love. Hopefully all the fans out there that like UAs definitely get a chance to see this deck profile, and I hope that this one, gets a lot of, I guess you could say, insight from the other UA profiles, because I love to see other people's mindsets approaching this deck, because it's a really cool deck. It's got a great concept and playstyle, and there's so many different ways that you can play it personally. Man, it's really cool. So let's start with the main. So starting off with the best UA monster, we've got 3 copies of Midfielder. So for those of you who are not aware of how UAs operate and what they do, I'll go ahead and explain it, and I won't take too long. But this is for the people who don't know. So if you know what he does, that's fine. So Midfielder is, first of all, he's the only UA monster that can be normal summoned. The rest of them are all high-level monsters. So he's the only one that you can normal summon, which is very imperative for their field spell. He has a really cool effect where basically all the UAs have the same summoning condition where you can special summon them by returning a UA monster you control in the hand. He has a quick effect where he can target one other UA monster you control, return that target to hand, and summon out another guy from your hand. And it's actually a quickie. If you read it, it'll show you right here going down to the line. During either player's turn, target one other UA monster you control, return to hand special UA monster from your hand with a different name, which is actually really cool because you can get out a perfect ace and another guy, say this guy, and once you've used one perfect ace, if you have another perfect ace in hand, you can use Midfielder to swap not the perfect ace, but the different UA monster you have to drop a second copy of perfect ace, and you can use that to have a second negation. So he's one of the ways that you can get out multiple perfect aces. If you can get one on your turn and one on your opponent's turn, or if you can get multiples out in one turn, he just helps you out in that. He also assists with a lot of OTK pushes, where you can just swing with him, swing with your Dreadnought Dunker. Dreadnought Dunker does some damage, and then you can use him, tag Dreadnought out for another UA, and then swing with that one as well. You can go some really, really big damage pushes with them. And again, he's the normal son of the deck. His tag out's insane. His effect tag out is insane, and he has the same summoning condition that the UAs have as well. So Midfielder's the best UA in the deck just because he can be normal summoned. We also play 3 copies of Dreadnought Dunker. So Dreadnought Dunker is one of the most aggressive UA monsters. So essentially, he has the same summoning conditions that all UAs have. And by the way, you can only special summon basically all of them. Like I forgot to mention that. Basically, you can only special summon Dreadnought Dunker once per turn this way. It's pretty much gonna be like that for all of them, where you can't be like, oh, swap out Dunker for Dunker and Dunker for Dunker. That's why midfielder is super good, because he kind of is like a cheat code in the sense where you can get out multiple UAs with the same name, just bypassing their actual restriction for the summoning mechanic. So this guy does piercing damage whenever he attacks the defense, and whenever he inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target one card on the field and destroy it. So this guy is the best target for your UA Power Jersey. You can equip Power Jersey. This guy's going to be at 4,000 because the field spell will boost him up by 5. The Power Jersey gives him an additional surplus of 1,000. So you have a 4K beater that's just swinging at your opponent. If it's swinging into a monster, you probably go for game because of Power Jersey's effect, and you can still pop cards. So Dunker gets pretty out of control. In tandem with Power Jersey, that's probably the best card you can pair him with. That's pretty bonkers. We also play 3 copies of Perfect Ace. It's one of your defensive cards, but also you're in a going second deck. There's nothing wrong with an Omni Negation to help you to protect your own place. So if you have a Perfect Ace out and you're going for a bigger combo, because there's some cards in this deck that are not UA related that can be very impactful, and you don't want that to be stopped, you can use Perfect Ace to negate their negator. If they were trying to negate your card, you can chain him to negate that, and it can help you out more. So 3 Perfect Ace, and it's one of the best options if you ever have to go first. It's kind of the only card you can sit on where it wouldn't be a specific interaction for matchups. Like, it doesn't matter what deck you're playing, a negate's a gate, and it can be good against any deck. We also, for single one-ofs, Mighty Slugger is one of the better hitters too, like Dreadnought Dunker, but he just doesn't accomplish as much as far as damage pushes. But he essentially does not let your opponent activate anything when he declares an attack. So he's like an Armades, which can actually get really out of control if you're trying to prevent Ray from coming back from grave, if you're trying to prevent floaters, rockets, not rockets. What am I thinking about right now? It's gonna come to me. It's gonna come to me in a second. But there's this other floater. There's another floater I'm thinking about that he can also counter as well. So Mighty Slugger is just really, really good, you guys. Perfect one of. I would play more, but personally, I just find that these are the only UAs that are worth playing multiples of. The rest can just be searched out. We also play 1 copy of Blockbacker. So Blockbacker essentially says, which is really cool, because this is your turnover tactics target. This is like a little interaction you use with turnover. Primarily, that's the main reason why I kept him on my main deck, because obviously you don't want a card like this going second, because what he does is, if your opponent summons a monsters, you basically get to change their battle position and negate their effects. I think it's both. It's like change the battle position and then negate the effects. Yeah, when your opponent specials a monster, you can change the battle position, and if you do, negate their effects. So obviously, if you're going second, your opponent has already summoned all your monsters. So one would say 3 stacks. Why would you play this if you want to go second? Well, this card has really good synergy with one of the best UA cards in the deck, and it's known as Turnover Tactics. I'll explain the interaction when I get to my spell count, but that's why I play the Blockbacker. It's actually a really good. It's like a insurance policy to make sure that your opponent doesn't get to summon some free boss monster that can just screw you over. So that's it for the UAs. And this is a going second deck. I like Phantasme in all my going second decks because you can scope your hand, filter, fix it up, and also when your opponent is trying to target, for example, your midfielder or especially midfielder, because like if you have him and they Widow Anchor that and take control of it, that can end your turn. So if your opponent's trying to like Widow Anchor your midfielder, for example, or anchor your ace when you chained ace to one of their cards, you can use Phantasme and it can just help you out a lot more. It covers a lot of ground and just a huge body, man. And I still do play also 3 copies of Pankratops. I always play them in all my going second decks. I love Phantasmes and Pankratops. They're just really good, powerful cards. Great bodies, and even when you brick, they sometimes can just maintain pressure for you so that you can buy yourself some time. I also play 3 Destrudo Mermere. It's kind of like a trademark going second thing. If I can fit Destrudo Mermere and I have extra deck space for it, I'm going to play Destrudo Mermere because it's such a powerful engine for going second decks, enabling you to systematically clear boards, picking them apart with 1-for-1 interactions like a couple Nightmares and a Caustic Magician or a Security Dragon or a Ningaritsu, for example, stuff like that, and then going into a Boar Sword after. Or for my instance, I like to go into High Speed or Chanbara because sometimes I can't make Boar Sword, so Chanbara is like the next best thing. So I enjoy Destrudo a lot in this deck. It also enables me to make Mistworm, which actually is a very underestimated level 9 synchro that hasn't seen competitive play in a very, very, very long time. But because this deck can make them, I was like, dude, we have to play Mistworm because this is a great card, especially going second. So yeah, Destrudo Mermere accomplishes so much in this deck, it's crazy. You can like make Chanbarbara, Mistworm, or just do a whole bunch of like Nightmare shenanigans with, Security Dragons and Ningirsu, and if you play Orcus, play Orcus. But I don't play Orcus in the UAs just because I wanted to I felt like it would take away from the integrity of this deck as a UA deck. You know, Orcus are great, and there's nothing wrong with them, and I would absolutely play them, but I just did not want to take away from the integrity of the UAs themselves. I just wanted to keep it as close to UA as possible. So essentially, it's pure UA. It's just you have some staples that help you out when you're going second. Because think of it, if you want to go second, you obviously want to play cards that can help you out when you're playing against established boards, and UAs can't do everything, so you just need something to supplement for wherever they're lacking, and or mitigate the weaknesses. So now for the spells, we play 3 copies of Stadium. If a UA monster is normal summon, you can add a UA monster from your deck to your hand. The only time you're going to normal summon a UA is going to be for midfielder. There are some times when you have weird hands and you have to tribute your Phantasmate to normal summon a Perfect Ace just to trigger the field spell, and then you'll search out like whatever UA monster you want and you can swap it out in special, do your plays that way. But for the most part, you're primarily summoning midfielder to trigger this, and if a UA monster is special to your field, all your monsters gain 500 attack, and that's a permanent boost, and it's for everything. So this is really good for OTKs. When you can stack an additional 500 on all your monsters, if you're going for direct attacks, that means 2,500 extra damage. So UA Stadium's a great card, and there's nothing that says you can only activate the effect of Stadium once per turn. It's just the thing is you only get 1 normal summon per turn, so yeah, that kind of sucks. And I do play 1 Terraforming, essentially for the 4th UA Stadium. It's a pretty important field spell. You gotta see Dunker, and if you don't see Dunker, you gotta get your ace. And continuing with more starter cards, we also play 3 copies of UA Signing Deal. UA Signing Deal literally specials a UA from your deck. It's pretty insane, you guys. Enabling you to have 6 extra copies of your midfielder, and also it is one of the cards that bypass the singular mechanic of swapping a 1-for-1 individually. Minimalistic. It's very minimalistic how UA summon each other. Just swap this guy for this guy. It's like you can special 5 times and still only control 1 monster, because the UAs return 1 to hand and special another. This is one of the ways you can get out multiple UAs and not have to worry about like, oh well, I have to swap this guy out for this guy, when you can just be like, no, I don't have to trade 1 for 1. I can keep both of them on the field. So Signing Deal is great. When you open this and midfielder, it can get really out of control. Like this midfielder in the field spell, you can start generating a lot of advantage with this card. Signing Deal is great, you guys. And for more starter cards, which these are the consistency cards. We're going to get to the going second cards as far as the spell lineup goes, but these cards are going to help you. These are for your engine. So the thing is with going second decks, you want to balance your ratios. Certain decks can play a ton of board breaking cards that are essentially going second staples, but with a deck like UA's, because it has consistency issues, you don't want to sacrifice combo pieces for example, cards like a Super Poly. You kind of want to find this equilibrium where you don't have to sacrifice anything, and you can keep all your combo pieces and still play the best board breaking cards that you can fit. So these are all the starter cards. Essentially, opening Foolish Barrel Goods is the equivalent of opening any UA Spell or Trap in your deck. So it's 3 extra copies of anything you need. And also the deck really needs some draw power, especially on +1s. So I do play 3 Pot of Desires. No more engages, and Extravagance is no longer in my arsenal. I don't have it anymore. So Desires was the next best thing, because they all could essentially get you a +1, and that's very imperative in a going second deck when nearly half of your hand has to be used and thrown at your opponent when you're trying to break a board. Sometimes, and in this day and age, it's baiting the gates. So you have to throw so many cards out of your hand trying to sacrificing those cards, trying to bait negates. You need a card like Pot of Desires to keep you in the game, because your UA plays require at least 2 cards. You can't make a UA play with just 1 card. You can't just be like, Signing Deal, play Yu-Gi-Oh! No, like you can't just be like, activate Stadium. Like, it always needs like a midfielder and something else in tandem with that. So yeah, Pot of Desires is a really necessary card in this deck. I also play 2 Pinpoint Landings, because all of your special summoning for the UA portion, their mechanic is to summon from hand. Pankrotop summons itself from hand. Phantasme summons itself from hand. Destrudo can summon itself from hand. You can always trigger your Pinpoint Landing whenever you draw it, and it just really helps you out in the long run, because if you end up not being able to kill your opponent in 1 turn and you just drop a Mystic Mine, you can actually play Mystic Mine comfortably with UAs, because you normally control just 1 monster, and you can just swap that monster out for another monster and just continue to draw so that you can keep your resources adequate on par with your opponents. So this card eventually turns into a plus. After turn 1, basically. You only want to play 2 because you can only use the effect once, but playing 1 is just like, at that point, it might as well just be an Upstart Goblin, so I felt 2 was a good ratio. So that's it for the draw power and the searchers. So yeah, these are all some really good spells, and opening any one of these is pretty good. It'll make your hand playable. Essentially, like, if you open any one of those spells, they can unbreak your hand. Now for the going second cards, you saw the monsters for going second, but I also play spells for going second. Obviously, 3 Mystic Mine. Every going second deck should be playing Mine. It's undeniably one of the best cards in the game right now. And as much as I hate the card, I can't knock how good it is. It's pretty free, it's pretty degenerate, and UAs play it like no other deck probably. Right now, it's just, there are very few going second decks that can get things accomplished with just one monster outside of Sky Strikers. Sky Strikers can clean your clocks with just one monster. UAs can do the same. So that's why Mystic Mind can also be left on the field, and you can afford to activate it going first, and it would be sufficient. So Mystic Mind is really good in UAs. It's an incredible card. I also play 3 Super Polymerizations. I've got multiple targets so that it can cover multiple matchups instead of just Danger, Thunder, Pendulums, and Orcus. So Super Poly is pretty good in this deck. Also, some of the degenerate boards, you just can't play around them. Like the Heretic Seal. The Heretic Seal beats me more than the Negates do because your normal summon matters so much. If they bounce your midfielder, that can just be the end of your UA plays. And without your UA plays, everything falls apart because all the other cards in this deck are just supporters, supporting engines. The UAs are the heart and soul of the deck, and they're what accomplish your OTKs and give you your board presence. So Super Poly can really help out a lot. Because you can just bait the spear out with the Dracostapelia, target it, and force its effect out. Then you can normal summon. I also main 3 Afterburners. This may seem weird, but I felt instead of playing cards like Mind Control or Insuffusion, even though Mind Control can get over monsters that can be destroyed, which can help sometimes, the thing was, I didn't have enough space. Well, I do play Mind Control still. The card I'm thinking about is Insuffusion. But the thing was, I didn't have enough space for basically Insuffusions and Twin Twisters. Which was kind of like a sucky thing because I didn't want my deck to lose to back row or floodgates. So I felt that Afterburner would kind of accomplish both. It's flexible. You know, we know what Afterburners is capable of doing with 3 or more spells engraved. So you guys already understand my mindset that this is kind of like my MST, but just it's more flexible because it doesn't just get rid of back row. It obviously gets rid of monsters in the first place. And whenever you're playing a deck that doesn't control monsters, you can always just, if you have a monster in your own extra monster zone, you can activate Afterburner, target that monster, and kill it. That way you can clear their back row. But I like Afterburner. It's not once per turn. It's great for baiting the gates, especially in your Pendulum matchup. Danger Thunder, you just want to target something that's not Colossus, obviously. And it's really easy to get 3 spells in this deck. 3 spells engraved because a vast majority of your deck is actually spells. In fact, I think more than half of it's spells. So it's really easy to just get that 2-for-1 interaction, and that is really good when you're going second. When you can 2-for-1 your opponent with 1 card, that means 2 Afterburners are clearing 4 cards from the field. That's pretty good, you guys. So 3 Afterburners necessary. If I had Widow Anchors, I'd play them too, but I don't. If I had Widow Anchors, I probably would cut the Mind Controls and just play Widow Anchors because it would be a better Mind Control and it's easy to get 3 spells in the grave. So yeah, the Mind Controls could have just been proxies, but I also just like Mind Control in general. It's still a really good card. Man, especially because this deck can struggle against Colossus. You do need to search sometimes, and you want spot removal that doesn't destroy. So Mind Control and or Widow Anchor are both sufficient in that regard. And then for the UAs, for the rest of the UA spells, I play 1 Power Jersey and 1 Turnover Tactics. I don't play one of each of them because I want to. Trust me, it's very unfortunate that when you want to play a competitive UA deck, you have to sacrifice on ratios sometimes, but the beauty of these cards is they are very searchable, they're accessible through your deck, and also you normally only need to resolve 1 in the first place, so a second one doesn't ever come up. Power Jersey is going to enable an OTK. Turnover Tactics, we'll talk about that when we get there, but this is why Dreadnought Dunker is so insane. I'll read you guys this card because it's busted. Equip only to a UA monster, it gains 1,000 attack and defense. Also, if it battles an opponent's monster, any battle damage it inflicts to that monster is doubled. You can't attack your opponent directly and do doubled. You have to attack a monster to get that double damage. But you'll have a 4,000 Dreadnought Dunker attacking into a monster, doing double damage, then it gets worse. If the equipped monster destroys a monster by its attack, it can make a second attack during the same battle phase. So meaning your Dreadnought Dunker is going to do double damage and piercing twice on your opponent, and he's going to kill 2 cards on the field. So when your opponent summons monsters actually in defense, that can be game right there. It's like Chaos Max almost, essentially. So you're going to have a Dunker that's at 4,000, that's attacking twice, doing double damage to monsters, and that's popping 2 cards on the field. So Power Jersey is an OTK enabler, and it's a board-breaking card. So you normally only need 1. And also, if you read its secondary effect, here's another great reason. During your standby phase, basically, banish the equipped monster. If this card's sent to the graveyard because the equipped monster returned to the hand, you can return this card to the hand. So this is another great reason why you only ever need 1, because when you're done with it, if you don't want it to stay on the UA monster that it was equipped to, you can always swap your Dreadnought Dunker out for a perfect ace, and then its effect, the equipped monster is returned to the hand, so then you get this back to your hand, and you can hold this in Dunker for your next push. And Turnover Tactics is the best spell in the deck. Super Poly's bonkers because it can't be negated, but if this card resolves, it's the end. It's the end all be all. If you control 2 or more UA monsters with different names, shuffle as many monsters on the field as possible into the deck. And that's including my field. So you shuffle every monster on the field back into the deck that could possibly shuffle. Special summon UA monsters from your deck that have different names for each other up to the number of cards shuffled into your main deck. So remember, it says shuffle as many monsters. So if you had 3 different monsters, 2 of which were UAs, you're summoning 3 UA monsters from your deck. So you're gonna shuffle. Shuffle those back. You're gonna special summon any number of UAs up to the number of cards shuffled into the main deck. But those monsters cannot attack. That's totally fine because you're gonna understand why. You swap them out for a card like Dunker and Mighty Slugger. It's absolutely okay. But the thing is, your opponent can then special summon monsters from their deck up to the number of cards shuffled in their main deck. So that is a problem, right? Most people think everything about this card up until that point sounded great, right? So that last part sounds unappealing. So someone reading the card would say, well, I don't want to play it because my opponent could just special out a bunch of crazy, insane monsters that would just kill me. Well, again, very in-depth on this profile, you guys. That takes me back to your answer to the question you might ask. This is why I play Blockbacker. He mitigates that issue. What you'll do is because you get to summon your UA monsters first, and then your opponent summons theirs. That means you will special your Blockbacker, your Perfect Ace. You're going to special Blockbacker and Perfect Ace off of this play, so that you have 2 negations, and any other UA monster you want. When your opponent decides to summon their monsters, guess what happens? The monsters that they summon, this card works on multiple monsters, a parentheses and an S, so this card can work on a soul charge. So your opponent summons all those monsters, you use Blockbacker. Change their positions, and they're coming from the deck. They're not link monsters, so you can change their positions, negate their effects. If one of them is a negator, they will chain their effects to Blockbacker, and then you'll chain Perfect Ace to negate that. That's how you break an entire established board of like 6+ monsters. If you can bait the Danger Thunder board, bait the negations, this is the end-all be-all. It's going to get you game. You're going to swap these guys out for better UAs, and they're in hand for next turn. So this turnover tactics is just such an overpowered, insane card. It just doesn't make sense why it ever was printed. Because when you actually resolve it, it's the end-all be-all, dude. This is like, it's like, why? Like, if UAs sucked, this would be the one card that would make them good, but they don't suck. And the only trap that I play in my main deck is 2 penalty box. You only play 2, not because you actually want to draw it, because you're going second. You don't actually use the first effect. It's only prevalent probably in niche interactions. You just play second one because if you draw 1, you want to have a valid target to still ditch from your deck to your grave off Foolish Burial Goods, because you can banish this card from your grave to add any UA spell or trap from your deck to your hand. That's how Foolish Burial Goods becomes a starter card, because you play this in your main deck. Now for the extra deck, we have Borosword. This is the card you're going into preemptively. Like not preemptively, but this is your go-to. This is your go-to link monster. The card you summon the most from your extra deck. We have Ningirsu to give more value to Destrudo Mermir, so that I can clear cards that can't be destroyed or targeted. And then we have Phoenix and Cerebus. I also love the drop-in deleter. It's a really cute card. I had so much extra deck space that I really wanted to try this card out. Because he can also kill monsters with level, and I just thought that that was such a cute interaction that I can do something cool like that. It just really helps out a lot, just giving you more spot removal, because it also requires just 2 monsters with different levels. So you can also take a token and any other monster and make this guy. So it makes the Strudel Mammoth even better. We play Security Dragon. The same thing with Ningirsu. If the monster can't be destroyed, you would target it with Security. If it can't be targeted or destroyed, you get rid of it in Ningirsu. So you can clear anything in this deck. I do play Barricade Blocker because I think that my Continuouses and my field spells are really powerful. And if I'm in a grind, if I'm in a pinch, my negations got baited, my Mystic Mind got killed, I can easily just get some recuperation of the end phase, so that way at least I know I have another play for the next turn. So sometimes he helps when you end up in a grind game that you weren't trying to go into intentionally. Then we have Link Creebone, Link Spider, Draco Stapilio, and Mud Dragon are the Insuffusion targets. That's it for the links. And then we have 3 Synchros, Yazi, Mistworm, and the Chambara. These I already explained. These are all part of your Yazi play for the Strudel Mammoth. And if you guys didn't know what Mistworm does, when this card Synchro Summon, you can return up to 3 cards your opponent controls to the hand. It's a triple compulsory evacuation device, except it's for anything. Yeah, that's insane, you guys. And then the rank 4 of choice was probably the best rank 4 for going second, Exciton Knight. The card was at Like, it literally was at 0 for a reason. You can actually bait negations with this and still break boards, because on summon, you can use this effect. They'll chain to negate it. You'll chain his effect to get into negate. And if they negate him, guess what? This 1 rank 4 just dealt with probably 2 to 3 interruptions by itself and baited him out. So thank you guys so much for watching my UA deck profile. You have your update. Again, thank you so much for the patience, and I apologize, but hey, man, it is what it is. I'm one, you are many, and I thank you guys so much. For those of you who were reasonable and understood that I was still working on my UAs, it just everything takes time. So you guys have a beautiful night. Everybody stay positive and stay tuned for the next deck profile, because I've got a lot more content coming for you guys. Peace out.